Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on? Welcome to Talking Buffalo podcast, part of the Blue Wire Network. Today is Tuesday, March something. I don't know what day it is. I do know it's Tuesday, though, which means, as always, I am joined by my good buddy, podcaster, writer, sports media personality, noted hockey too, by the way, Substack creator, Joe Yerdon. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing great. By the way, it's March 7th. Just so
Is
you
it
know,
March
you
7th?
get your days right. We're,
One of these
listen,
days.
I get it. We're starting. Well, I'm not going to jinx the weather, but like it's starting to get to the greener part of the calendar. So I get like days run together. It's we're speeding through everything. So yeah,
Could have fooled me about the greener part of the weather, at least on Friday night, man. And some of the week was cold, man. I feel like March is going to be bad to make up for a, to be quite honest, a pretty mild February. I mean, it was, we've had some major significant storms. Like when it's hit hard, but the consistent cold or 6 to 8 inches, we really haven't gotten much of that. And in that aspect, I feel like it's kind of been a little bit of a mild winter, not too much of a mild. Let's not get crazy now, but
right. Yeah, it's a lot like last year where we got hit in the teeth with like 2 big storms and it was nothing the rest of the time, which I'm not going to jinx anything because I know the second I'd be like, yeah, we're in the clear, another monster snowstorm comes through and ruins our week.
Right. And you know what? And by the way, for everybody who's whether you're watching this on YouTube, whether you're listening to this in podcast form, this week is kind of going forward is the consistency that I've been waiting for. Like Joe is with me on Tuesdays. Aaron Quinn is bouncing around, but starting this week and going forward, Aaron Quinn will be on with me every Wednesday. So we got Joe on Tuesday, Aaron Quinn on Wednesday, and then on Thursday night live at Imperial drop Friday morning podcast form. I'll have a different guest with me every week. This week I am going to have Tyler Dunn. Supposed to have him a couple weeks ago, but then we were just talking about the weather a couple of minutes ago. That was the Thursday where the weather decided to take a real shit on Buffalo, so we couldn't make that happen. But anyway, that's going to be the schedule going forward. I might have a random bonus episode thrown in here and there. But anyway, so I need to say, because the Sabres have a big game tonight. We are taping this on Monday mid-afternoon, so the game will have already been played, by the time people are listening to this episode. And, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but, kind of just getting over the weekend. How was your weekend? I watched something. I'll tell you about that in a second, but did you have yourself a nice little early March Buffalo weekend, or were you just chilling?
It's chilling because we had the game here Saturday afternoon. So that was, so we had to get down with that. Which that's fine. I mean, whatever. That's totally fine. I went to the Buffalo Beer Goddesses winter formal, I think, or just formal. They had it at Big Ditch Brewing on Saturday night. That was great event to go check out. They're a fantastic group. Love doing stuff with that. Well, doing stuff, I mean going to their events and drinking beer and hanging out with friends. That's what I like to support. But no, they do a lot of great stuff for women and brewing in the city. They go all out. Fantastic group. I don't know what your demographics are, Pat, but like if any of the women listeners who are big into craft beer, look them up on Facebook. They're super to hang out with, and they do monthly socials and stuff. I don't know why I'm the spokesman here. They probably don't want me speaking up on it too much, but yeah, did that Saturday. Sunday was supposed to be a nice, easy day until, I went driving around and my car started acting funny, which is really fun to have happen anytime. And discovered I got to get my spark plugs changed, which hopefully today, Tuesday, we can get that taken care of, because I am babying the hell out of this thing right now, because it's reached the point in its life cycle where like it's time to change those. Because it's creeping up on 6 figures in miles, so it's getting there. But it's like one of those things where it feels like it's an easy job to do, where it's like, I just buy some spark plugs, get the right tools, I could do this. It seems easy. But then people are like, "Are you sure you want to do that? You're not really a car guy." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's probably a good point. I probably don't want to go screw up my car anymore."
I'm not a car guy, man. I literally cannot do anything. I can't change a light bulb or anything in my car. It is
Oh, you can't even change light bulbs? See, I can do that.
No, I can't. I literally can't. I am like
Wow.
I am not a car guy at all. It's kind of embarrassing, actually, to be honest with you, but
Wait,
it is what it is, man.
I mean, you get fooled by like, hey man, you got to change your blinker fluid this month, like, or else your car's gonna fall apart.
Oh, I'm in trouble, man. I don't know. I go
Blinker fluid will get you every time, Pat. You know,
blinker fluid. Okay. I had a nice relaxing weekend, man. I had some friends over, played poker. I played Hold'em for the first time probably in 5 years.
Whoa.
And we had a good game.
Here. Damn,
12 people. We get 2 tables, 12 people. By the way, won that tournament. Just want to throw that out there.
Oh.
A couple bucks and a nice little trophy amongst our friends. That was cool. Sunday, and I'm assuming you have not gotten a chance to watch it yet because, like, again, it literally dropped late Saturday. I watched it Sunday. There's a new Chris Rock special on Netflix, comedy special called Selective Outrage. I'm assuming, again, we haven't really talked about it before we started taping here, but I'm assuming you haven't gotten a chance to see it yet. Right?
No, I didn't even know he had one coming out. So
I didn't either until late last week. I did not know until later last week. By the way, I did write up on my Substack, moran.substack.com. I did actually write a longer review about this. Not going to get into it too much today. It's brand new, so I don't want to really give too much of it away. But it was the first time since the Oscars last year where he's really addressed head on what happened with the slap with Will Smith. It was all right. It was good. You know, if you're a Chris Rock fan, I've seen better from him.
Yeah.
You know, some of the content was really good, or some funny moments. Meghan Markle, and talk about her not knowing about the royal family being racist. He had a really funny bit about that. It's some funny stuff about Beyonce and Jay-Z. Other stuff fell flat. But the thing I didn't like was I tuned in, and just like I feel like most people did, because he wanted to finally hear him address what happened at the Oscars last year. And he didn't do it to the last 5 minutes of the show. It was like an hour-long special. So at some point, even though it's kind of, you know, his bits were pretty good, I was kind of just glossing over him. I'm like, all right, man, come on, get to the shit that, you know, I want you to talk about. The only thing I'll say is that, I mean, you could tell he's really angry. Like, some stuff is comedy, but some stuff is like real. Like, and he went a lot harder on Jada Pinkett Smith, quite frankly, than he did Will Smith. Pretty
interesting.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away. It's worth watching, but I don't think it's going to be one of those, you know, like Chappelle or older Chris Rock classic type of of shows. But that was all right, man.
Say his first couple 2-3 HBO stand-ups were all timers as far as like they were like they rank up there with so many good ones where it's, you know, like, it sticks out in your memory and you're like, okay, yeah, that one's great. Like, you know, basically, what was it? Eddie Murphy's Dangerous. Like, that's like an all-timer.
Sure.
Richard, you know, what was it? Richard Pryor's first one is like an all-timer. Anything Carlin did is pretty much
for
you know,
sure.
Guys
Man.
like that. Lewis Black, like his first one where he's just, you know, completely unhinged. It's great and super funny, but yeah, it's tough watching comedians lose their fastball over time. Which is it's hard because you're like you never want to be in that spot where you're like, just do the old jokes, do everything you used to do. Like, nobody wants, you know, you can't really do that. Like, it just, you know, the material ages out, and, you know, everybody knows it's coming. So it's like, all right, yeah, it's still funny, haha, but like, you're not tearing the house down with it. But
the one thing, Joe, I forgot to add too about Chris Rock on Saturday night is the first time ever on Netflix. It was actually a live. It was like going to a sporting event. It was completely live. Even the shows that you mentioned, like Richard Pryor doing a show at an auditorium that was live, or Eddie Murphy, I think he did Delirious, did Raw. I remember seeing that it was actually playing at the movie theaters, but it was still edited in post. You know what I mean? Before it went out, this was live. And I say that because Chris Rock fucked up a joke at the end with Will Smith. He meant to say a movie and he said the wrong title, and he acknowledged it too in the middle. He goes, I fucked up the joke. And then he got right back into it. It was the first time I've ever seen something, or they've ever done, I should say, something live.
I appreciate that. Like that. I mean,
I do
somebody
too.
should be like, I mean, I get why you record it and edit it. Like, you got to make it, you have to fit time constraints and make it flow naturally. Like, I get that, but to do it live like that, man, like, mean, I mean, they always do
tough.
live anyways with an audience or in a club or whatever, but
you could get rid of some stuff for before it hits Netflix. You know, if you want to tighten it up, like you said, to your point, you need to tighten up for time, or if a joke bombs, or you choke on the punchline or something like that, you kind of redo it, and the audience, the streaming audience will never see it. Only the people who are in that auditorium will actually see it.
I love comedy. I would love to be able to be good enough to do it, to be funny enough to be able to pull it off. B, have enough confidence to get up in front of people, run through the stuff, and then be okay with not being good. Like that's I get why comedians get in their heads all the time, because I would too. But I got to what was it, a couple months back, David Cross, who, you know him, he's Joe Bluth on Arrested Development, all kinds of things. Like he's just everywhere now. But he was up in Toronto and was just like working on like stuff for an upcoming tour. And it was like 90 minutes, almost 2 hours of him just like working stuff out, working jokes, working, the framework of stuff that he's going to do. Cause he's touring now. He's actually going to be, I think he's going to be at Babeville. I think it's Babeville. I don't know. But kind of soon, like within a couple of weeks, I think. And it's the kind of thing where I want to see what the finished product is, even though it's like maybe a lot of the material I saw that night is going to repeat itself. But like, when a comedian gets it down and they get, the timing and the pace and all that stuff, they get it down and they nail it. That's perfect joy for seeing a comedian when they've got it refined and they're able to get that laugh every time. It's so good. And like, the ones that do it and the ones that are able to pull it off, it's awesome. Like, because it really is an art. Because it's entertainment. It's stand-up comedy is tough because not everybody has the same sense of humor either, right? Obviously, if you're doing a show, everybody there likes your stuff, so that helps. But those
tickets cost enough money. You like that guy or girl if you're going to see them, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the David Cross one is like $40 or $50, so it's like, I mean, whatever. It's a small enough show. He's got like a niche enough audience. Like, I get it. People like me will pay to go see that. Like, that's fine. But yeah, I give a ton of credit to anybody doing comedy. Like even folks that are like trying to do it amateur comedy nights, like it can be tough to go watch because listen, not everybody's going to be good. Not everybody's going to have anything figured out. Maybe they tell a couple nice things. Maybe you see a couple of funny things and you're like, okay, not bad. But it's so hard. It's such a difficult, getting up in front of people and talking anyways is hard. Like never mind trying to make them laugh. Forget it.
I can only imagine, I should say, doing this podcast now for a little over 5 years, or, I've done some spots on other shows and things like that, but it's like, I know I've bombed before, shit, man, I stumble over my outro every goddamn week, usually with you, to a point where when you hear it at the end of the show, I'm gonna let you know right now, it's pre-recorded at the end. But my point is, I've bombed, whether it's a live stream or whatever. I'm sure you've bombed on a podcast or some kind of broadcast that you've been a part of before.
Live TV hit. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Live TV hit. That's tough enough. Imagine being on stage in front of, even if it's just a small venue and you're at a club, that's gotta be tough to be able, if you bombed, the joke fell flat or you butchered it and you don't get no reaction. What's going through your mind in real time at that moment, it's gotta be hard to overcome something like that bombing.
Yeah. It's one of my favorites is Dave Attell because he's equal parts, degenerate and also super funny, and can be kind of gross with some of the jokes too. I mean, it's like college, fart humor or whatever. But there was a special that he did. It was I think it was an HBO thing that was in Washington, and he's doing like all these kind of like, not gross out jokes, but like just stuff where it's just kind of like, that's funny because it's, it's gnarly. And then he told one joke and it was like, the crowd goes, oh, like that. And he's like, oh, that's the line we're crossing. Oh, okay. That's the one after all this other stuff. Okay. He's like, that he proceeds to keep pushing the button afterwards. It's like, yeah, no, it's okay. Good. Audience gets called out. They're like, oh crap. Yeah, no. Okay. That's what we signed up for tonight.
Yeah. It's gotta be a really scary feeling to bomb or to freeze. Sometimes when we're doing a show or something, I might be thinking about something else for one split second, and then I get completely lost in the thought of what the hell I was talking about, and I'm in real time trying to process everything, and it
Oh
just
man,
it gets tough, man. It gets tough for sure.
Let me tell you, I used to do theater like high school, early college stuff because I enjoy theater quite a bit. I think to act is, again, it's the same thing. It's like comedy, like to be able to pull that off and do it on stage and be convincing and pull off your part, impressive. But you have to like memorize lines and like,
Yeah.
some of if you have like a lead role in like Shakespeare or something, like your brain has to be on a whole other level to keep all your lines. Imagine playing Hamlet and you're like every other scene you're in and you got to talk all the time. Forget it, dude. Like speaking the old, Shakespearean language. No way. I was doing like, 5-10 minute plays where it's, very short, short act, whatever. And like a couple of them, I had a pretty good number of lines. There's a couple of times where it's like, oh no, I forgot what my line is. And then you're trying to like improvise and move on and just try to get the cue line out so that who you're on stage with knows to like, okay, now we keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to find your way to that sometimes, oh boy, that could be a tour because if you're trying to you're like, okay, here's the point that I left off at. There's a thing to fill in. I just have to say this line so we can keep going. And sometimes it's a lot. For me, it was like physical gesturing or just like, being pensive or some dumb thing that made no sense. So it was just like, I just need to get to my cue line and here it is.
Right.
like one of those things. And just like, we got to keep the show moving.
Yeah. Anyway, like I said, when it comes to Chris Rock, I graded it a C, which maybe I was a little bit hard on him. Maybe it was my expectations were just completely through the roof based on the Oscars last year. And plus it's Chris Rock, man, he's among the greatest ever. So by his standards and what I've seen from him before, it was just all right, and worth watching. I would definitely, recommend that people watch it. It's not like I wouldn't call it skippable, but I don't know. To me, it wasn't his greatest stuff. But anyway, let's talk some Leslie Frazier. Now, last week, so this is kind of old news because this was last week where the Bills announced that Leslie Frazier was not going to coach this year. I found it curious at the time and still do now that it's pretty obvious that he's not retiring. He's going to coach again, or at least he's probably going to coach again, and did not specify that it was with Buffalo. So anyway, again, at this point, this is old news, but there are some developments over the last week. And by the way, one of them, Tim Graham over at The Athletic said he spoke to a bunch of people at the combine, and in the sense that he got from talking to a lot of other people is that he was burned out after an incredibly, and he used the term arduous season, that there might be some burnout when it comes to Leslie Frazier. So he's not going to coach this year, might come back afterwards. And I've been closely following, and I have my own opinions too, but I've been closely following the reaction from fans and some media, whether, it's mainstream media or, alternative media, whatever it may have. But there's one thing, Joe, that really has bothered me, and you can have an opinion, there's no opinions are opinions. They're not right. They're not wrong. They're what people feel. But I don't like lazy takes. And somebody who has opinions without doing any kind of research or background on what they are saying. And let me be a little more specific. And I'm not calling anyone out because it's not any one person. I've seen several people have this take. When it comes to Leslie Frazier, the regular season defense has been great. The playoff defense has been okay in wins and has been horrific in their losses, like spectacularly bad. It's blown up. 3 straight years when they've lost, the defense has been utterly miserable and terrible. So a take that I've heard a lot of, and I wrote down some notes because this is what I'm talking about, man. If you're going to say something, back your shit up. People are blaming or not blaming Leslie Frazier for any playoff losses. And the take is that they've just run into really good quarterbacks because the last 3 years they've lost to Pat Mahomes twice and now Joey Burrow this year. It's a take that really bothers me. So I went and I looked it up, man. Let me drop some numbers on you and then I'll get a reaction from you here. Last year, 2021, I should say. Let's go back to the Bills wild card or overtime loss in the divisional round at Kansas City. Pat Mahomes against the Buffalo Bills. 552 yards of total offense for Kansas City, 378 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, also ran for 69 yards and a touchdown. Kansas City went 8 for 13 on third downs, and Mahomes was only sacked twice. Okay, this was that 42-36 divisional round win.
Yep.
And again, the take is, well, they ran into really great quarterbacks in the playoffs. Okay, that's an unbelievably great game.
Mm-hmm.
The very next week, okay, they played Cincinnati at home. Here's Pat Mahomes' numbers. Held to 275 yards, threw 2 interceptions, including the game-losing pick in overtime. He was also sacked 4 times, and he was held to just 19 yards on the ground after having 69 against the Bills the week before. He also fumbled. Kansas City was only 6 for 12 on third downs. And again, they turned the ball over twice. Go back to this year. The Buffalo Bills against Joe Burrow. Burrow, 242 yards passing. They ran the ball very effectively as well. 2 touchdowns, no picks, only sacked once, 412 yards of total offense for the Bengals. They were 6 of 10 on third downs. Okay, next week, Joey Burrow, after playing Buffalo and going to Kansas City, 270 passing yards, 1 touchdown. He threw 2 picks. He was sacked 5 times, 309 yards of total offense, which is more than 100 yards less than they had against Buffalo. And they were only 6 of 14 on third downs. So are you trying to tell me that the Cincinnati Bengals defense in 2021 was better than the Bills, or that the Kansas City defense in 2022 was better than the Buffalo Bills all season long? Why did those teams have so much success against Mahomes and Burrow the week after Leslie Frazier's led defensive coordinated Bills defense failed so miserably? You know what I'm saying? Those are the takes that I hate. Go ahead. Sorry. I talk for a lot.
I think that's when like cocky Bill, well, I don't know if you can be cocky in this situation. People like, well, the Bills softened them up, the week before. So, they were ready to lose the next week. That's just how it is. The Bills did that to them. That's just how it happened. No, that's not the case. It's not the case at all. Listen, any of those games, the 13 seconds game, this past year in the playoffs, all of them, the defense has had some major flaws come up in those games specifically. Right? We don't need to go over the Kansas City game ever again. I think we all know how that played out and how bad how that turned out. I mean, obviously the turnout was bad, but like how Kansas City was able to execute in that game, late in that game, was bonkers. That they were able to do what they were able to do and like get downfield in 2 plays, like nuts. That's unheard of, and that should be like a borderline fireable offense. Granted, the Bills were in a different spot at that point because they're on the rise, and you're like, well, you can't kill a guy for this. Like the D was good all year, blah blah blah. Like Kansas City's good, blah blah blah. All that stuff. Cincinnati, like I don't even know what happened with this. I mean, obviously they ran out of gas. The Bills were out of gas. Emotionally exhausted, the whole thing. The offensive line was awful, like, all that stuff. But like the defense didn't do anything. And the defense is banged up. I get it, but also the execution and the setup of the defense was also bad. Like it was a double whammy of the team just not having it, and also the coaching staff not helping it out. And those are big spots to come up short in. The last thing you want to have in the playoffs is your coach not pulling the right strings and just being off, because then you're hopeless because you're going to miss. There's going to be assignments missed. There's other teams that are good with their offenses are going to expose the hell out of that and pick it apart, which, hey, Cincinnati definitely did. Like they took advantage of everything there, but even Kansas City, listen, if you're going to play your corners and your D-backs, 8-10 yards off the ball, boy, you can hot route everybody and throw them underneath and let them run. Like that doesn't need to be Tyreek Hill or T Higgins or whoever. Like it doesn't need to be any of those guys. Jamar Chase doesn't have to be some super speed demon guy. All these guys are fast. Like nobody's super slow bum out there. Like give a guy enough space, they're going to take off.
Yeah, man. And by the way, Joe, I also didn't even bother to mention 3 years ago, I talked about spectacular, bad defenses in the playoffs. The Chiefs dominated the Bills in the AFC Championship game, and then they got absolutely mauled in the Super Bowl by the Tampa Bay front seven. Kansas City's offensive line was depleted with injuries, and they got mauled. So anyway, if you're going to
that to them again, they soften them up. This is how it goes.
If you're going to, say stuff like that, then why is the next week these teams struggling? You know what I'm saying? But now you turn it around the other way, and Tim wrote about this, and a lot of fans feel the same way. And to a certain extent, I agree. it's not just Leslie Frazier. A lot of criticism for the Bills' playoff woes, because again, this was one of the best defenses in the NFL during the regular season the last 3 years. That's, you can't even dispute that. It's right there in black and white, So you could also say, well, Sean McDermott deserves a lot of credit. And God, as much as it pains me to bring this up over and over and over, I can't not bring it up. I go back to 13 seconds. I go back to the Bills being in a prevent defense, not once, but 2 straight plays. And I go back to the Bills calling a timeout. Sean McDermott calls timeout. If Leslie Frazier is calling that defense and you don't like it, change it. Twice. Twice they call a timeout. That's on the head coach, man. Point being is Sean McDermott has had his hands on this defense a lot. It's not like Leslie Frazier was locking him out of the defensive coordinator meetings, you know what I mean? In the film room and stuff like that. His fingerprints have been all over this defense as well, good and bad. And then another thing, which, again, Tim wrote about, a lot of media people have talked about, he was very, very respected and liked in that locker room. Leslie Frazier, I'm talking about, you know what I mean? To a man, these guys love, and in some ways is kind of a father figure to a lot of these guys. I think Leslie Frazier was a good defensive coordinator who probably ran his course over 6 years with the Bills at this point. And related to this, and because this is kind of news too, Josh Reed from Channel 4 reported this early on Monday. Again, we're taping this Monday afternoon. He's hearing from the combine that Sean McDermott plans on calling the plays. It's very likely, at least, that Sean McDermott is just going to take over play calling. They're not going to hire an outside guy for defensive coordinator. So if you think McDermott was good or bad or what kind of influence he had on this defense, Joe, going to find out because he's going to be probably taking over the play calling this year.
Yeah. Sometimes with coaches, the message can get stale. I think that happens a lot of times. And football, I mean, you got 1,000 coaches on the sideline, the position coaches, everybody, there's a coach for everything in football. And sometimes the general message can get tired. We don't really know what goes on in the room at all.
Right.
Like, we don't have a really good idea on that. It's just to have a team that plays that well during the regular season. It's like, it didn't seem like the message was getting stale there. Obviously, the coming up short in the playoffs is a big problem. Like, that's a huge problem. But I mean, the head coach is the guy in charge. And I think Tim got to this point. The head coach can pull the strings if he wants to, no matter who the coordinators are. Like, if they say, no, I got this, then okay, that's you. Leslie Frazier doesn't have to leave for that to be the case. I mean, he could just be a kind of a figurehead DC and, just be the guy to help coordinate. Of course, he's a defensive coordinator, but he can be the guy that just manages what McDermott wants on the defense, which is probably exactly what's going on. But
it wouldn't be the first time we've seen it in Buffalo either. Dennis Thurman was basically that guy for Rex Ryan.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, it's tough, but for me, this is McDermott. If this turns out to be the case, this is him wearing it, saying like, okay, if it comes up wrong, that's me. Like, that's on me. But it also might point to maybe there were things that Frazier was doing that he didn't agree with. And he's just like, well, I trust you less. So, we're going to do it the way you want to do it. But I find that hard to believe as well, because I know McDermott's very much not necessarily a control freak, but kind of on that level where he wants to have a handle on everything. I mean, Lord knows he spends enough time studying everything, but yeah, I mean, if this turns out to be the thing, and say he hires somebody to just kind of be the manager of the defense while he takes care of everything, it's going to be really interesting if things come up short again, because I don't know where you can hide McDermott from that point. Because I know nobody wants to get rid of him right now, but I mean, geez, after 13 seconds, it started turning some heads and saying like, I don't know, man, this might be an issue, because this guy came up, didn't get the kickoff coordinated, didn't get any, all this stuff fell apart in that game. And, this past year, I mean, whatever, it is what it is, but their task is a lot harder now. And, from the business side and on the field, it's going to get a lot tougher. So if he wants to wear it, he's going to wear it hard.
All right, I am back here with Joe Yerdon. You know, when it comes to the Bills defense right now, and I don't want to speculate on what they may or may not do. In fact, I probably should have said this on the outset of this program too. Next Tuesday, Joe's not going to be on. We got kind of like a scheduling conflict, so it'll be 2 weeks. But here's the point. 2 weeks from now, we're going to know what direction this Bills team is headed in terms of personnel, because free agency starts next week. And we'll have an idea for sure when you and I get together next. But right now, I look at this team, Joe, and on this defense, whether it's Sean McDermott or someone else ends up taking over the play calling duties, this might be a defense that might be in a little bit of trouble because they might lose Tremaine Edmonds. I think they're going to lose Jordan Poyer. More on him in a second. Some guys, Von Miller, who knows when he'll be 100%. Who knows if Trey White's ever going to be back to what he was before he tore that ACL. We certainly hope that's the case. Micah Hyde's coming back, but he missed almost a full year last year. Who knows if DeMar Hamlin's going to play again? Hopefully he does, but his health comes first. Anyway, my point is there's some, as of right now, again, maybe 2 weeks from now, we see they bring back Edmonds or they do some things and we're like, wow, this defense might even be better next year. But as of right now, and without their defensive coordinator for the last 6 years, as of right now, I feel like there's some potential to certainly be concerned about this defense and maybe even this roster going forward in a conference, Joe, that I think is really getting better because there's some mid-level teams like the Jaguars and the Jets that I expect big jumps from, so a little bit concerned right now about this roster.
Yeah, I mean, we've been kind of, I don't think you and I have tiptoed around this at all. Like this was gonna get a lot harder for everybody because of the money. And because people are gonna end up leaving because the money ain't there, or how many guys can you conceivably believe are gonna take team friendly deals, or how many guys want to rearrange their contract, all this other stuff. It's the task is so much harder. And then of course, like it's like what happened. I mean, I'm not going to compare the NHL to the NFL, but it's kind of like what happened in the NHL, the Eastern Conference. Everybody loaded up because they're like, okay, well, all the beastly teams are out here. Everybody's got to get their chunks in there and make sure that they can compete with them. Same thing in the AFC, like Kansas City, everybody tried to keep up with Kansas City. Then, Buffalo comes up and they're, running teams off the field offensively and they're doing all this other stuff. And you're like, okay, we got to keep up with them. Then, Cincinnati gets Burrow, they start taking off. And it's like, okay, well, we got to keep up with that, and Miami's kind of sort of knocking on the door if things go right for them. And, San Diego is, get a defensive minded guy in there to fix their defense. And then they're going to be a threat to people. Like that's where we're at. I mean, Tennessee, geez, they kind of wasted it a I with Derrick Henry's.
They're ready. I think they're ready to tank now. Yeah, they're going the wrong way quickly.
The fact that they kept it going and made the playoffs and won their division a couple of times with Ryan Tannehill is unbelievable. Honestly, and that says everything about Derrick Henry. That the respect for his game made it so that Tannehill could actually throw for yards and get touchdowns and all that stuff. But it's going to be so much more difficult, and the margin of error is going to be so much slimmer, because some of these games, the division games are going to be nasty. Miami games are going to be rough. Jets, it's the Jets, I know, but Jets are coached pretty damn well.
I love the Jets roster.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really high on them this offseason, especially if they acquire the guy that you and I think might equally despise and loathe and hate.
Yeah. That guy, but even New England, everybody keeps waiting for for them to fall off the face of the earth. They never do. They're just there. They keep making the playoffs, keep doing stuff, and it's like, all right, at some point Belichick's gonna want to hang it up, but no, he's not. This is his life. He's gonna keep doing it, and it's hard. Imagine if Denver figures this stuff out too. If Russell Wilson was just kind of in outer space last year and everything goes bad, like. They've changed things around with their coaching staff. Maybe that's going to be a different setup for them. So it's not going to be easy. And geez, look at the games they're going to have on the road this year, like at Cincy, at Kansas City. Like it's a hard game. Hard games. Like those are going to be primetime games and not easy.
Joe, I'm telling you now, man. So I lived for 5 years in Florida, and during my time there, I made a lot of friends, obviously none from Buffalo. And Florida, as everyone knows, is a transplant state. It's a melting pot for people who live all over the country. So I made friends with people who were fans of a bunch of different teams. And a couple of years ago, the Bills were on the come up. And it was like, man, you guys got a great quarterback. You guys are fun to watch. You guys are good. And it's still like that to an extent. But I'm starting to get a little bit of a sense from talking to friends and maybe some other people as well that there's people out there who are starting to think that the Buffalo Bills, and I hate saying this, and I know I'm going to piss some people off, but you and I keep shit real here, man. I think there's a lot of people out there thinking the Bills are overrated, right now. And if they don't take that next step this year, and if Josh Allen, as good as he is, if he doesn't start to play a little more consistent, if Ken Dorsey doesn't take that next step as OC, if Sean McDermott, if him calling plays is too much for him to, he bites off more than he could chew, being the CEO of the entire program as well. The schedule, which you just mentioned, man, a lot of good teams in the AFC. I'm telling you, the beastly conference, like you said. This team could fall to the middle of the pack, and you could hear it won't be whispers, it will be roars that the Buffalo Bills got a couple really nice players, but they're overrated. They got a lot to prove this year, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear that shit, but it's facts. This has been 2 straight years where a team was supposed to go to the Super Bowl, be right there, and didn't even make the AFC Championship game, let alone win it. So they got a lot to prove, man, whether people want to hear that shit or not.
Yeah, I hate that I have to keep going back to saying the window to make sure you could get it done was the past 2-3 years, because that was the easier, quote unquote, easier path of that, because you knew teams were going to hulk up. You knew teams were going to want to try to keep up with the Joneses or the Mahomeses. That's a better way to put it. Teams try to keep up with the Mahomeses and the Allens and the Burrows and all that stuff. You just knew it was going to happen. And when you got the cap that's manageable, make magic happen. They tried. They came, they came about as close as you can get, but that don't count for anything. That's the part that's the killer. It's like, oh, hey, we got to the AFC title game. Oh, hey, we were close that one year. Like, it doesn't matter. Nobody remembers that. Nobody cares. Nobody remembers.
Right.
I mean, people here remember. People here care. But it's on the national scale. No. So it went from being Kansas City, Buffalo being the big rivalry to who the hell are the Bills? I don't know. Whatever. Get Cincinnati in there. The Kansas City, Cincinnati's our thing now.
Yeah. I think of overrated like turn into hockey, like Toronto Maple Leafs. They run over teams in the regular season, lose in the first round every year to playoffs. You know what I mean? Now the Bills win a playoff game, so I'm not gonna say they lose in the first round every year, but kind of reminds me of that. You look at the Toronto Maple Leafs roster, you're like, holy shit, man, look at all this goddamn talent all over the place. Why are they not in the Stanley Cup every year or on the verge of it? And I kind of feel like the Bills are in that same boat. Anyway, one of the teams that you did mention were the Tennessee Titans, and I feel like this is a team that's getting ready to play for Caleb Williams, the USC quarterback, the great one in 2024. They released Bud Dupree on Monday, and rumors are floating all over the place that Derrick Henry is on the trading block. It is worth noting that NFL insider Mike Silver said that he does not expect the Bills to pursue that trade. Didn't say that they were out on him. He said he didn't expect it. I've heard a couple of rumors, and it was fueled. If you're watching this on the YouTube side, I just put up a picture of Von Miller working out with Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry's so big that he makes Von Miller look small, which is just, it's absolutely crazy to me. But anyway, man, there's traction picking up right now. I do believe Derrick Henry could get traded because he's on a team that's going nowhere, so why not get something from now? He's 29 years old. He's got one more year left on his deal. It is worth noting that the team that trades for Derrick Henry, they would get him for $11 million against the cap this year. Quickly, before we move on to a couple other things and some hockey talk here, do you think it would be wise for the Bills to pursue a trade for Derrick Henry? In one sense, it's like, does he really fit this type of offense? And in another, it's like, you're going to stop Josh Allen's arm and Derrick Henry's legs. That could be fun, man. I don't know. What are your quick thoughts when it comes to potentially Derrick Henry being a Buffalo Bill?
How are you affording him? That's the first question. How are you affording him?
You're right.
I'm the dream crusher because
I
gotta be the dick
right.
that reminds you like you have no money to spend.
You are right. I will say they can afford him. They can make a lot of moves to free up some cap room. And let's just say they lose Tremaine Edmonds and they're not going to pay him 16, 17 million a year.
Right.
And they decide to draft a rookie as a replacement or a low cost stopgap guy. They let Poyer walk. They restructure some guys. They can certainly find the money for Derrick Henry. I'm just saying they can. I just don't. Does it feel like a great fit though? Because
no, because
it's going to change your complete. Exactly. You're not going to get a guy like Derrick Henry and still throw the ball 35 times a game. That's what I'm saying.
Like, are you going to be able to bring him in and say like, you're going to carry it like 12 times a game? Just make sure to rattle off 15 yards each carry, please. Thanks. No, you're just not.
I agree with you.
I mean, would the O-line like it? I'm sure they would love it. Yeah, O-line guys love taking care of the run. Like they want to get out and shove guys and lead the way down the field. But man, listen, I'll make that trade in Madden, like, and as soon as we're done recording this, like that's awesome. That'd be fun as hell. But I mean, you're talking about doing like pulling a Von Miller on your offense, where it's like, okay, throw all your chips behind one guy and make sure, we'll take care of business there. Like, it's a cool idea. I mean, listen, add as many stars as possible because that's the fun way to play football. Get all the names, get everybody. But there's no way you can convince me that Derrick Henry would be like, yeah, Buffalo's the play, unless he sucks it up completely, says, no, I'll accept taking a lighter load to try to win a title, which I don't know if he's at that point in his career yet. I don't think he is, because he wants to rush for 2,000 yards a year. He wants to run people over all the time. And
well, I mean, maybe the Bills offense would completely change with him.
I don't know what team he could do that with though. Like I don't know what team is set up where they run. Well, I do know one team that likes to run the ball occasionally. They play in Michigan. But I mean, that's not happening, but it's something where the league is so different. I mean, Derrick Henry's a freak because he made it cool to run, in this era, because, everybody's base defense now is nickel essentially. So you get a guy like that can run and run people over. You add another defensive back out there instead of a linebacker to try to tackle him. Good luck. Like, you're just not going to do it.
I agree with everything you say. I don't think it's likely as well. I'm not going to lie, though. It is intriguing. It would definitely change the complexion of the offense for sure. But I think of the Titans, not last year, but the 2 years before that, would have been one of the better teams in the AFC record-wise, in part because, Ryan Tannehill's just mid to me. But when you got a running back like Henry, you have to respect the run. You have to. You got no choice unless you want this guy to run for $180 on you every week. And then I look at the Bills roster and I'm like, all right, well, you have Derrick Henry on each team. The Bills roster is way better than the Tennessee Titans have been anytime in recent years. It would intrigue the shit out of me, man. But I know where you want to go with this. And I agree with you. I do agree with you. I just don't see it, man. I want to see it though. I want to find it. I want to find a way that I could see it being successful. It would just, I think, feel like it would change too much. Are you going to make Josh Allen Ryan Tannehill? You're going to run the ball a hell of a lot more if you got Derrick Henry. I can promise you that.
This is the thing that made me think of this is, okay, you go out and get Henry. You can't get the number 2 receiver you're looking for. You can't go, like, you're basically saying, all right, Gabe Davis, make sure you put some extra stick 'em on your hands. Like you're telling all your other receivers, like, don't be bad, because you're going to have to run with bare bones behind Diggs. And then all the pressure's on Diggs because now he's got to get it. And then they got to throw to him, which, when you got to throw, he's going to be doubled every game. He's going to be doubled. Like, you can't get away with that. Like, he gets doubled some now, but you can't get away with that all game long because, Knox will get it. Davis will catch some balls and beat you deep. There's enough guys there that can burn you on the rest of the team. But if you take away the ability to maybe get somebody at that level, I mean, maybe Bean has to like break his habit of drafting defensive tackles in the first round of the draft for once. Like maybe that's what he's got to do and finally draft a friggin' receiver. But it's very hard. It's very hard. Listen, this is the great kind of offseason, like, bullshit talk. That's great. Where it's like,
Oh,
what
yeah,
if Derrick Henry on the Bills? Okay. Like, it's a great, like, you can start there and just be like, yeah, it'd be awesome. That's cool. It's great. But then it's like, okay, now figure out how you do it. Then it's like, ooh, I don't know how you do it. Like, because you have to make sacrifices in a lot of other areas to do it, especially on the offensive side.
Absolutely. The fun part, Joe, though, is that we're not talking about this in January. We're talking about this beginning of March. So if something does go down, we're going to find out soon. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I will say this, though. There's one little nugget of information with the Bills. They have been linked to some big game running backs over the last 2 years. Definitely Alvin Kamara, definitely Christian McCaffrey. I know they've had interest in Saquon Barkley, who, by the way, might end up being a free agent if the Giants don't sign Daniel Jones before you're listening to this show and they end up tagging him. Saquon would hit the market potentially. Anyway, so that's why I wouldn't completely write off Derrick Henry, because I know the Bills have been interested in a game-changing running back. But at the end of the day, and I know a lot of people don't like to think this way, but this is the way it is in the NFL with the Bills. I like James Cook a lot. They drafted him last year. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Khalil Shakir. He came on there at the end of the year. Brandon Beane's philosophy is we're going to draft these guys, we're going to develop them, and we're going to play them. They are cheap labor, where you could go out and you could go get a veteran or two. On the offensive line I'm talking about is where I do think ultimately they should spend most of their money. But my point is, you draft and you develop these guys. So you draft James Cook in the second round. You let him play more and more as the season goes on. You're probably going to let Singletary walk, and then you're going to go trade for an $11 million running back for 1 year. What does that say about James Cook, a guy you drafted in the second round last year, if you were to do something like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, the running back position for this team is so weird. Like, I can't even call it fascinating, because it's just kind of like, they stuck by Singletary for all these years, but then it was always drafting somebody to be right behind him, to be like, well, we got to get somebody that, can kind of cover for him because he drops the ball sometimes, or, he's not cut for XYZ reasons. And it was always trying to change it up. Like with Zach Moss, it was like, well, we need a heavy guy to get in behind him because, that's something he does different, and Zach Moss couldn't cut it. Now with Cook, it's like, well, he's a fast guy. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can do all this stuff. And then it's like, we don't really use them that much. Like, okay, it's like you come up with a good idea and then you don't put it to use, or you don't trust it, or whatever, or what have you. I have such a problem with tinkering with parts of the offense, and this is where McDermott is really guilty of doing this, because he always talks about, we got to run more, we got to be a better running team, blah 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 blah. Dude, you have like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, I don't know, outfit him. Like, instead of just trying to jam the ball with, jam the run on the ball all over the place. And listen, I know the offense had success because they ran a little bit better this year, but man, like, you have a gifted quarterback, dude. Give him weapons all over the field. Like, get a good running back. Don't want to run him 20 times a game because you're going to take the ball out of Allen's hand, which you still kind of, see, I'm talking myself out of it now. Because
I do it all the time.
Yeah, because you do need to rely less on Allen, but I don't I don't know, man. Like, you need shit. Like,
you can throw it all out.
Myself in the wheels here. Like, this is because I keep thinking back to that number where it was like he was responsible for 88% of the offense, and I'm like, that's a whole fucking lot of time he's got the ball, and it's like he needs to have the ball in the hands, and I'm like,
I just feel like Derrick Henry's like maybe one of the very few guys you could throw the rule book out the window, or you could throw logic out the window. If you get a chance to get a guy who can make that much of an impact and change your offense, that you almost have to do it.
I just I would be really interested to see how you disguise that you're going to run him with this offense. That's the thing that gets me. And I know they love having tight ends all over the place, but like, you come rolling out with a 2 tight end set, and Henry's in the backfield and you got 2 receivers. Am I buying a play action? Maybe the first few times, yeah. But I mean, people are going to be ready for it. Like, that's the thing. And I mean, he's used to having the stack boxes and everything. Like, he gets it. But like, I don't know how else you try to disguise the way you're going to try to run them with this team, because if it becomes very apparent, it gets easier to stop. Now, it's not easy to stop him, but I mean,
I know what you're saying.
You're kind of sacrificing some of the mystery that they can run with a lot of their plays, which, I mean, they're good with that. Like they're very good at disguising things and changing things up and whatever. But I don't know, man. He's just such a different runner. Like I don't know. I don't know how you would handle it.
It is a polarizing topic for sure. Look, bottom line, at the end of the day, and we'll find out again soon enough. By the time we talk again, we'll know. I feel like offensively, they're going to add a guard. Maybe you sign a receiver who's a little long in the tooth, but still might have a little bit something left. They've done that in recent years. It's kind of worked out. Mixed bag of results. And if I think they make one surprise move, and I'm clueless what they're going to do on defense, I really don't know. But offense, I think if they're going to spend some money and make one move that might surprise people a little bit right now, I can see them spending good money and going to get a really good second tight end. So they can run those 2 tight end sets. You know, they were hoping they were going to get from O.J. Howard last year, we just didn't give it to them. I know they've had interest in Gronk over the last couple of years, just different levels. But I could see them going out and trying to get a difference-making tight end that you could play with Dawson Knox. It gives you a whole other look on offense that's hard to defend. So I think that could be something that we might be talking about a few weeks from now as a surprise. And I certainly hope so, because if they are, I'm going to bring this clip up and shove it in your face. For sure. One more quick thing, then we're going to finish up with some Sabre stuff. And I got my 3 questions for you this week. I have I guess it's a take. And I'm not saying Rachel Bush out specifically, okay? But this is an example of something that I can't stand. And she put out a couple tweets late last week and then deleted them almost immediately.
Of course.
A couple of Bills fans were were tweeting some nasty shit to Jordan Poyer, who's likely on his way out, basically kicking him, in the ass, out the door.
Which is ridiculous.
I hate that. Yes, true. Agreed. I want to point this out, though. I'm not specifically singling out her because a lot of people do this in the media. I see it a lot. Joe from Queens points it out to me privately all the time. I want to say this. 2-3% maybe of people, let's assume Jordan Poyer is gone. Let's just make that assumption right now.
Oh,
maybe safe assumption, sure. Fairly safe at least.
Yeah.
And he leaves. 5% of Bills fans are going to be like, he's old, he's washed, fuck him. We don't need him. He gets hurt. His big mouth wife, blah, 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 blah. All this stuff, right? They kick him on the way out. That's true. Guess what, Joe? 95 or more % of fans are, thank you, Jordan, for 6 great years. We wish you the best of luck wherever you go, unless it's Miami. Ha, ha, ha. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they mean well. They've treated him great. They say nothing but nice things about him, and they wish them well. That's 95 to 97% of fans. 2 or 3% are complete fucking idiots. But the narrative is when you tweet about stuff like that, it makes it sound like you're talking about a hell of a lot more than some minuscule percentage. Like I said, Rachel did it last week when it came to Jordan Poyer. I see it a lot with sports media stuff where a couple strays might say some dumb shit, but then the narrative makes it sound like, you're talking about a lot of people when you're really not. You know what I'm saying? It's just, again, I don't really have any purpose of this take. It's just something that really doesn't sit well with me. And also, if you're going to make tweets, I don't like deleted tweets. I literally was going to clap back at her. And for the record, I want to put this out there, and I don't give a shit how many people she's blocked or don't like her. I count my co-hosts here among them. I get it. I know. I understand. I get it. But to me, just like say with Harrington when it comes to the hockey side of stuff, I have good relationships with people specifically. Rachel Bush has never been nothing but nice to me, and I've had conversations with her. So that's just me specifically. So I'm just throwing that out there. That said, I was going to go at her a little bit because I did not agree with what she said, and she deleted the shit. I hate that shit. Point being, folks, don't represent, a tiny 2-3% of a fan base and make it sound like it's more than that. That's, I guess, what I'm bitching at.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. It is really funny that Rachel Bush blocked me. By the way, I've literally never interacted with her in my life.
I hear that a lot.
I have no interest in interacting with her for 1,000 different reasons. But geez, it's funny. It's really funny. But it's
ironically, she follows me. I have a feeling it's going to come to an end really soon, though. But
I was just say that'll be the tip off. As soon as she unfollows you, it's like, well, he's gone. See you later. But when it's media kicking a guy on the way out the door, like that bugs me a lot because it's like, dude, like you worked with him. Like you know, like whatever. Like unless he was, purposely being a dick to you, then like, all right. Like if it was mean on a personal level, then like okay. But if you're just gonna be like, he was never any good anyways, whatever, get him out of town. Like that kind of stuff bugs the hell out of me. And it's like it's a big trait of Boston media, because anytime a guy would get for a long time, I don't necessarily think it's that way now, but like anytime some guy played for the Red Sox or I don't know really the Patriots a little different, like Red Sox, Celtics, Bruins, like Bruins back in the day, not now. Some guy would be like, give you a lot of great years, play great, and then they leave as a free agent, whatever, or get traded, what have you, and they'd be like, never any good. This guy was a stiff, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what the hell, man? Like, what are you talking? You talk to him every day and you're gonna like dog him on like online, like stupid. It's so stupid and it's unnecessary.
All right, it's been long enough. I like to give you when I have you on the show, I try to give you a break from talking too much hockey, because obviously you and Lance do Maintenance Day podcast every week and you're talking about hockey. And then of course, your own Substack, NortonHockey.substack.com. You're writing about hockey, you're recapping every game. Mm-hmm. You're at practice every day, you're constantly writing stories, you're talking hockey, writing hockey. So I at least like to give you some kind of break from talking hockey on the show, but this is kind of a big week. I feel like I've been saying that every week now for the Sabres. And again, I got to point this out, folks, because you're listening on Tuesday, or you might be watching this video really late after the game on Monday. A 4-game week for the Sabres. Monday, after we tape this, the Bills. I do that once a week, by the way. The Sabres are playing at home against Edmonton. Tuesday night, a big, big, big game. Mm-hmm. Yes. In Long Island, the New York Islanders.
Ooh, on Long Island.
On Long Island.
Screamed at by everybody down there.
Probably. And you're also right. Thursday at home against Dallas. Saturday at home against the New York Rangers. Again, 4 games. Another big week for the Sabres. Again, we're taping this Monday, so Connor McDavid has already played on the ice when you're watching or listening. But I got to ask you, because the guy is such a great fucking player, man. I love watching Connor McDavid play. He's one of the few guys in sports, probably, that quite frankly, if I get a chance to watch them on TV, they alone are worth watching, whether the team, and they are good, but even if the team's not good, they're just so exciting that I got to watch him play. You know, got to watch him play. I know what he's like on the ice. You ain't got to tell me about that. But there was a media, the media met with him today. What were some of your off-ice impressions from, I'm not sure how long he spoke for today on Monday, but I don't know. What's your takeaway on him as a person from what you hear, what you see?
Yeah, when it comes to answering our questions and being on the record and all that stuff, he's as stern serious as it gets, because he is. I mean, listen, he is a guy that is just an impossibly tough competitor. I mean, he wants to win. Every guy wants to win, but like not a lot. You won't like outwardly see it from a lot of guys or hear it in their voice sometimes. McDavid, it's very apparent on his face and how he talks about things. And, you get going, asking him about, the schedule coming up or recent games or whatever. And he just, the fire's there. Like he's been the captain of the team for a while now, but like, I don't know how exactly, like what kind of leader he is, because I could see him being a guy where he just speaks up, tears something apart, and then you're like, oh crap, Connor's fired up. We got to go to bat for him. Let's do this. And it's, Edmonton's a weird situation. It's been, ever since before he was there and since he got there, it's always been weird. Kind of Sabres West a little bit with how things have gone there, but or at least I guess the Sabres started imitating the Oilers and then carried it on a little bit too long. But when it's when the cameras turn off and the recorders are gone, I stopped him for a quick second after the scrum today and asked him if he got to see any of his folks from Erie, because he used to play for the Erie Otters in the NHL, which is Erie's right down the road, essentially like 90 minutes away, and like the whole demeanor changed. Like he goes from being like locked in media guy, like zeroed in, like dead serious, to being light and being like, oh yeah, I got to see him, got to hang out, got to see him a little bit, like it was great, blah blah blah, and just kind of being casual, just having a casual conversation with the greatest player in the NHL, But it's like, I do have a sliver of history there. For NHL.com years ago, I wrote a story about Andrei Burakovsky because he was an Erie Otter. He was a Caps prospect. He's now won the Stanley Cup a couple of times, I think now, once, twice, I don't know. But he was a teammate of Connor McDavid's when McDavid was like 15 or 16. And when I went out to Erie to go interview him, talk to him, to Chris Knobloch, who was coaching the Otters at the time, McDavid's there, and it's like a year or two before he's going to be drafted, and like everybody's already talking about him. Everybody knew he was going to be the next big one. He's the next Crosby, all that stuff. And I was like, well, I'm already here. I was like, can I talk to Connor? I think it was Aaron Cooney was their head of PR there, and I was like, any shot of talking to Connor? I was like, yeah, let's bring him out. And the nicest kid, just like the nicest guy, nicest kid, smiling, happy. I mean, he's 16. How do you not hate life? It's, 16, like you're playing hockey. It's great. You're hanging out with your buddies all day, every day. It's great. But he was just such a super nice guy. And then that, the whole lead up to the draft and everything. And, going, at the draft, all that stuff leading up to it was just, it wears you down. And like, listen, we would always get stuck asking Connor about Jack and Jack about Connor, and those guys couldn't stand talking about each other. Sure. Like it's the last thing they wanted to answer about was
does he know how close he came to becoming a Buffalo Sabre?
Right. Well, it's that also, like the unfair comparison of being like, well, these guys are kind of on the same level. And it was like, even back then it was like, we're saying that. I don't know who's believing it, because we saw McDavid play here with the Otters one time that season before the draft. Played at First Niagara Center at that point. It wasn't KeyBank Center yet, I don't think. But like, people turned out because they wanted to watch and they wanted to see how good this kid was. And Jesus, it was like an exhibition for him. It was a regular season game, but like this dude was playing power play. He was playing penalty kill. He was scoring in every situation, just lighting it up. Just incredible. An unbelievable talent. Like I got to meet Thurman Thomas that night. He came out to go see Connor McDavid. Thurman's a hockey fan. He loves it, but I asked him, I go, what are you doing here? And he's like, man, I got to see this kid. Everybody's talking about him. He's like, plus if he ends up here, I want to say I was there first. I was like, hey, that's fair, man. Like that's fair. But he's a regular dude. It's just, you only get to see a little bit of a guy, through interviews and,
sure,
through the words, the stuff that we write, whatever. It's, it's when everything goes off and you get to chat with a guy, you find out more kind of what they're like. Some guys, they don't want to do the chit chat. Other guys really happy to talk. And Connor's not excited to hang around the room that long. Like, let's be real. But like, some guys, you can just ask them about something, hey, seeing the Erie people, coming to town or whatever. And it just drops the curtain a little bit to say, yeah, no, hey, it's been great. It's fun. It's awesome. Like got this, asking Sidney Crosby about his sister was playing goalie at like Shattuck St. Mary's. And I was like, hey, how's your sis doing? Like, oh yeah, it's great. Like, I can't wait to see her. She's going to be playing college. Like this is years ago. Like she's playing college. I can't wait to go watch her games. And I'm like, that's pretty awesome, man. Pretty cool big brother right there to be just, show up for her games. Like whenever, he was able to. Like it's pretty awesome. But it's the stuff you get to see, like we're the normal human side of things.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I'll tell you, just kind of like with LeBron James, I respect LeBron in part because of the expectations he had at such a young age, the pedestal that he was put on at such a young age. And Connor McDavid in that regard is not really that different. And then on top of it, Edmonton wins a lottery and you're going to, it's one thing maybe if you go to Arizona or something like that, the pressure won't be so great, but you're going to an organization and now you're going to have to live up to Wayne Gretzky. You know what I mean? The greatest to ever play hockey. Yep. And you're going to that same organization, the next Gretzky, just the pressure and the way he's played is just, it's a joy to watch. Speaking of a joy to watch, on Saturday, it's old news now, the game, but that Sabres game Saturday against Tampa, man, that was fun to watch on TV. I watched it on TV. It was a sold out crowd. You could hear it. It was loud, pretty intense. These teams don't like each other, which makes these games more fun. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun to watch. My wife and my son, who rarely watch games, they know what's going on. They don't sit down and watch the games. We spent 2.5 hours on Saturday afternoon watching the Sabres play in March. Joe. A meaningful game in March. Man, for year after year, I say, when the hell can we watch meaningful hockey in March?
Yeah.
It's here. I want to ask you about the new guys. One of them's debuting tonight, or Monday night, I should say, Jordan Greenway. And then also Riley Stillman, who, look, I got a lot of respect for the guy. I'm going to say that it was tough to watch that fight, the end. Really tough to watch, but you get a sense that even though he got, let's just face it, he got the shit beat out of him in that fight, the sense that went a long way towards getting respect from obviously the fans in the stands, but also maybe his teammates in the locker room and stuff like that too.
Yeah. I mean, guys that do that stuff are instantly respected in the room. Like this goes back decades. Anybody who does that kind of work on the ice that will kind of like take those punches literally and step up for their team, they get all the respect in the world. Like look at Rob Ray here. I mean, any of his teammates almost all of his teammates from the past are gonna be like, dude, Razor took care of business, because there's a lot of guys in Buffalo when he was there that were not that kind of player. Look through, McGillney wasn't going to fight people. LaFontaine wasn't going to fight people. Phil Housley wasn't going to fight anybody. All these guys where it was like the talent was there. Those guys took care of it. But Rob Ray hit people, fought the other team's tough guys and took care of business that way. It was obviously it was a different game back then, but the guys that do that now, like, it's so rare because, referees want to break it up before anything happens. They want to try to prevent anything, bad happening. I get it. People hate it, but I get it. But yeah, huge respect for him. He might've got crossed up because I don't know if that he knew Jeannot was a lefty puncher, because the punch he took on the button, I think it was like a left hook right on the chin, put him down. And that was tough to watch. I mean, Stillman was like down on the ice, and the linesman was immediately calling to the bench to bring the trainer out to help him out. I mean, because he was bleeding too.
Started trickling out almost immediately.
Yeah, I don't know if he got cut from the visor or he broke his nose or whatever. Could have been both. Who knows? But yeah, guys like that take care of that business, immediate respect. Like, just look at any time like Dylan Cousins or Peyton Krebs fighting. Guys eat that stuff up. Like, they go nuts for that. They're just kind of like, oh, look at this guy, he's fighting. Like, that's cool. You don't want him doing it, twice a game every night. Like, that's stupid. But if he's willing to do it, because Peyton's not like a physically imposing guy. He's kind of, he's strong, but like scrappy strong,
Sure.
The fact that he was like dropping gloves with guys, you're kind of like, okay, all right, we're doing this now. All right, that's cool.
What about Jordan Greenway? Again, he didn't play Saturday. He is people. The game's already going to be played when people listen to this. But your thoughts on the acquisition overall of Jordan Greenway?
It's I was a little hesitant about this early on when it was getting kicked around as a rumor before the deadline, and I was like, I don't know about this, because there's a lot of how his play was going in Minnesota that just didn't sit right with me. And maybe it's the situation, maybe it's this, that, or the other thing. Maybe who knows. But I wasn't, especially because he's got another year or two on the contract for $3 million. I'm like, it's like, man, if he plays like this when he comes here, man, like that ain't gonna cut it. Like, because you got a ton of forwards already, and like, you got a guy that's not gonna really get things done and take care of business, and that's tough. The thing that makes him different, though, and there's a couple of things. Obviously, his size. He's 6'6", 230. Like, that's a linebacker on ice. Like, that's a big guy. Yep. He does play physical. He skates quick. Like, he's not an iceberg out there. He's gonna go fast.
So he's like a Tremaine. He's a Tremaine on skates, man.
A little bit like that, yeah. And the role that he's gonna play, forechecking, penalty kill. He's Monday night he played with Gergensons and Opozo. Like, that's kind of where he's going to factor into things. I think the PK is going to be the biggest thing for him, because that needs to get right. They have one of the worst PKs in the NHL. Like, you gotta fix that up. He does have a little bit of scoring touch. He's broken double digits twice. I think he scored 12 one year and 10 another year. Not a big point guy, like 20 to 30 points, like whatever. Like, bottom six guy, like that's fine. You'll take it. Any offense you get is kind of a bonus, but he's also going to be the bouncer. Right. Kevin Adams was pretty straightforward about saying, like, teams are trying to bully us. He's like, we're handling our business.
Yeah.
Guys are sticking up for each other and doing all that stuff. But teams are not going to stop doing that, because they know it drives teams, it drives them nuts. And, you got to take somebody good off the ice if somebody sticks up for them, like whatever. Now, it's not to say Jordan Greenway is not a good player. He is a good player. He's in the NHL. But if he's the guy that is going to take somebody off the ice because somebody else decides to take a run at someone, okay, like that's fine. We saw the Tampa game. Tampa game would have been a pretty good one to have Jordan Greenway available for that one, because Stillman answered the bell, obviously, but when you got a guy out there that can crush you along the boards or the corners, out in front of the net, it's a lot different. Like, because you can't just go flying willy-nilly at everybody.
One last question, and then we'll wrap up here. I know you got to get to the arena too pretty soon. It's Friday, or when was the deadline? It was last Friday.
Yes.
Hours leading up to it, a couple hours before the trade deadline. Were you starting to get really annoyed by a lot of people? And by a lot of people, let's throw myself in there as well, that were bitching that Kevin Adams is not doing anything. This team, they're not trying to win. They don't care about the present, about the future, this and that. Was it getting a little bit annoying to whether they were DMs on Twitter to you directly or just seeing people on the timeline? Again, me being one of them who were really digging in and bitching that it felt like the Sabres were not going to make any move at all.
I'm not going to say annoyed. It's a lot of the stuff that I was saying was just kind of, my opinion was like, I agreed with about Adams and Granato and Kyle Opozo. Like all these guys said the same exact thing to us and to me about, how they were going to approach things. They're like, we're not giving up, big futures to try to get something now. Like, that's just not what's going to happen. And if you're going to get something for now, like to address now, immediately, like right away, like a rental or Jacob Chychrun, like whatever. The Chychrun thing's a whole different, like, can of worms there. But it's just, if you're thinking like, just give up Roseanne, give up this guy, just give up Savoy. Like, yeah, we don't need him. We don't see him for 3 years. Like, it's fine. Like, that's not how this team flies. Like, that's how this team got in trouble so many times in the past, where, you're just giving away stuff like that. And I remember I answered you because what you said, you're like, what's the harm in giving up a 3rd round pick for a guy? I don't get it. And I was like, you were like the 3rd or 4th person to say that to me that day. Like almost the exact same wording. And I was like,
copy and paste that shit.
I was like, did Reddit have this out there? Like hit every writer with this comeback? Like, I was like, man, like, listen, I agree with you. Third round pick ain't nothing. Like, but what are you getting for a 3rd round pick? I think that was the main thing was, the answer you're looking for you're not going to get that with what you're saying to give up.
I agree.
And, and Adams made that pretty clear in talking about Chychrun, and kudos to Lance. I gave him kudos on the podcast as well for wording his question in a way that Adams could talk about Chychrun without mentioning his name and saying like, listen, the price for us was different than what the price Ottawa paid. What they asked of us was not something we were comfortable with.
Right.
What Ottawa paid was they were happy with that. No, Ottawa gave up like an unprotected 1st round pick this year, which if they don't make the playoffs, depending on where they slot in, in the bottom 16, like second, the other half, the non-playoff teams, if they finish, say they finished 11th, the 11th worst team, say they win the lottery.
I know.
Oops. Arizona just got the number 1 pick thanks to Ottawa. Like, that's the thing. Like, I mean, anything 2 through 11 can win the first, can get the first pick. The most you can move up is that much, but like even 12th, you can move up to 2, 13th, move up to 3, like the whole thing. You finish 16th, win the lottery somehow, you can move up to 5 or 6. Like, that's tough. And like Ottawa said that their rebuild's done, but like, I'm looking at that roster going like, it ain't over, man. Like you don't really have a lot coming in behind these guys. So like the pipeline's not as full, but no, to say I got annoyed with people, no. I mean, it's stressful because we're waiting for stuff to come through, and then it does, and then we're checking it out, like going over the numbers, all that stuff. Like, it's stressful in that moment, but annoyed, no. If people were like, Joe, tell Adams to do this, like, no, I'm not going to. B, shut up.
All right. Well, you have a better demeanor than me because I absolutely would have been annoyed. And I'm glad you brought up the point, too, that just because Ottawa gave up what they gave up for the trade doesn't mean the Sabres would have only had to give up the same thing. all, the trade
Right.
offers were probably different.
Well, that was the thing. Like, people were like, Sabres could beat that deal. Yeah, no, very easily they could. But that they weren't asked for their first round pick and, like a second or whatever the hell Ottawa paid. Like I think it was 3 picks.
Yeah.
That Arizona wasn't asking for that from Buffalo. They were asking for like Yuri Kulik and Matt Savoy and then probably the first round pick this year. Like, sorry, no, that's not the deal you make, man. Like that's the price is different. That's not the price Buffalo's going to pay.
Agreed.
Ottawa takes their guys off the table, or maybe Arizona's like, the prospects you're offering really suck. We don't want them. Like, they just say, whatever, just give us your first round pick unprotected. Okay, done, easy. Like, just give us. We need a defenseman. Just take him.
All right, so we're going to wrap with we've been doing this for a while now to end the show. I got 3 questions for you randomly. I go on Facebook. There's some groups like the salad recipe group. I see some interesting questions, even though they're not really about food. Then I just steal them, just flat out rob them and ask you these. Again, little fun fact things. People get to know a little bit more about you and myself as well. The first one, if you're watching this on YouTube, I don't have the graphic for it. I do for the other 2. But the question was, what's something you were required to learn in high school that you've never used in your adult life?
See, I feel like I have to pick like a different answer because the easy answer is like trigonometry. It's like, when the hell am I using like the sine, cosine, tangent of shit in my life? Like never. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's good to learn. Don't get me wrong. It's good to learn and good to know like the basics and all that stuff, radius, diameter, blah, 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 all that stuff. Great. Good to learn. But like finding like deep trigonometry stuff, man, like where you have to buy like the TI-83 scientific calculator to do shit. And it's no, like I've literally never used any of that. Every other class that I took, like in high school, I think I can say I've used some of that at some point, at least, or like maybe even for like trivia. Like if it helped me get like free beers one night, easy, done, great, thank you. Like, but I mean,
that's a good point.
Practical life stuff and like anything, like, or even trivia, like, no, they don't ask enough questions about trigonometry at bar trivia or, in my life. Like, you try to tell me to like figure out like the cosine of the tangent of like the crease on the ice. Fuck no, I'm not doing that. Get lost.
You bring up a good point. I was going to say history was one of mine, but sure, if you want to use it for trivia or something that didn't really matter, but might have won me a beer or something like that, or watching Jeopardy and knowing a couple questions more, maybe I guess history. Spanish for me, I took Spanish. I don't remember any Spanish.
Dude, you grew up on the West Side.
Math. I get simple. I know basic math fairly well, but I knew that before I got to high school. So I pretty much most shit that I learned in high school or required to learn doesn't really do much for me in my adult life. And it's probably not something I should be proud of, by the way. But
so you're saying you don't know when people are swearing at you in Spanish, right? Or
I have no
jackass,
clue.
right?
No earthly idea. I think I might have taken a year of French too, and I know I definitely failed Spanish. I know that for a fact because I almost got kicked off the football team in high school because of that. Mm-hmm. All right, next question. What's the 1970s saddest song you have ever heard? The saddest song you've heard that you could think of from the decade of the 70s?
You're not
really much of a sad song kind of guy either.
No,
like kind of like my lane.
Like I have a handful of like songs that I know that if I hear it, I'm just gonna be like, no, I cannot listen to this today. Like I just absolutely no. Like it's like I'm in a good mood and that thing comes on, I'm like next channel, like whatever, just get me away from it. Saddest from the 70s, man. Like I feel like there's I don't know, like it sad for me is like it's a mood thing, like it's not necessarily get a teared up kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah, it's
tough, man.
This is really hard because again, like sad songs are not my wheelhouse.
It's not your lane. That's my lane.
It's not my thing at all. Like you said, like something from the 90s.
I know the 70s are also a long damn time ago.
Yeah, and like my 70s likes are not like for me, I think it would have to be like something by the Carpenters.
Sure.
Probably and I could not pull a Carpenter's song title off. Not do it. But I know
there's
they
the
wrote
song about
songs where
Mondays. There's a song
that.
about Mondays that always did something bad to Karen
Yeah.
Carpenter. I remember that.
Like, I mean, I guess, and it's not a sad. No, it's not a sad song.
Let me
But
tell
I'm
you
saying,
the. Let me
like,
tell you the
Beth
sad.
by Kiss, like
Who?
Beth by Kiss,
Oh.
like
Eh,
it's not really sad. It's just
eh,
different, you know. It's
depends how you interpret songs too. Sometimes the popular one that I would say most people would say is Don McLean, American Pie.
blah.
You know, it's I really don't care for that song.
Is that
I
sad?
was
Like,
huh?
is that actually a sad song?
I think so. Cats in the Cradle's another sad song that I saw.
Hang on, that's the one.
Cats in the Cradle.
Cat in the like, yeah, no, that's the song. That is 100. No, that erase anything that I said. Just delete it off the pot. Like,
Delete it right off the podcast, even though we're
is.
shooting live on video. That's okay.
Cats in the Cradle, man. Like that song, dude. Yeah. Fuck that song. That is like a get out of my head. Like, no, stop it. Just no, don't toy with my emotions. Yeah.
I want to. I wanted to say, although I didn't know if it would be cheating or not. Bette Midler, The Rose is a really sad song.
Yeah,
it was recorded in 1979, but it wasn't released until March of 1980. So I felt like I might be cheating if I said that one. I went with Pink Floyd. I think the Rose in my mind. Pink Floyd. Wish You Were Here for sentimental reasons. That song's got sentimental value to me. Sadly, it does. 1975 song by Pink Floyd. I like that song a lot, but it is very sad.
See, no, picking Pink Floyd, that's a great call. The other one I would have thought would be Comfortably Numb. That's another one. I mean, that's a great song. Like
it is.
Guitar solo, the guitar work, everything about it. But like, man, that's a song that hits you right in the gut.
Sure.
I mean, it's not a teary song, but boy, it gets you into a place in your head where you're like, ooh, I'm having a day, and a half.
All right, man. Enough of this sad shit. Let's get to the last question here. Where would you go if your trip was completely paid for? You can go anywhere you want, and your trip is paid for. Where you go?
Anywhere at all.
Anywhere. It's completely paid for. You won on a game show or something, and you won the grand prize, and they're sending you wherever, all expenses paid. Where you go?
It's a region. It's not necessarily a very specific place, but Australia, New Zealand. Like send me there.
That'd be cool.
I would love to see. I mean, Australia is terrifying because it has creatures that will murder you at any point, at any time, any time of day. It has bugs the size of your head. Like just everything about like that part of it is terrifying, but like the whole place seems cool as hell. A friend of mine who I got to know through hockey and Twitter or whatever, like she moved back to Australia, like she's from there. And I'm just like, one day I'm gonna come and hang out and visit. Like one day I'm gonna get out there and like, I don't know when the hell that would be. I have no idea. Like, how the hell am I gonna get to Australia? I don't have that kind of money. But like New Zealand looks incredible. Like, I mean, geez, just watch Lord of the Rings. Like all the stuff outdoors is that. New Zealand's like breathtaking stuff. So yeah, like that's about as far away as I could get and have it be with enough modern accoutrements, but also be kind of natural in some ways. Like I don't want it to be just like a giant city. Like Tokyo would be cool. Tokyo would be cool as hell.
Yeah.
And like going to the South Pole, going to Antarctica would be pretty rad. But like, I mean, there's one place has nothing. The other place is too much. So
yeah. I like Australia, man. That would be high on my list. I love the accents. I just love hearing people talk Australian. I really
sucker for the accents.
Yeah. Really, really cool. For me, absolutely. It would be Dublin, Ireland. I really love it. If there's like one overseas place that I really want to go before I die, it would probably be there. And matter of fact, I'm kind of hoping to win the lottery in the next few months because Notre Dame is playing in Dublin against Navy on August 26th.
Oh, okay.
I've asked Erin, my wife, to kind of look in them, just fantasizing, what it would cost to be able to go there and make it a trip and go to a game out of it. Sure, it'd be exuberant though.
Yeah. Well,
I ain't affording that shit anytime soon, man.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I know a lot of people that do trips to Ireland, and their deals come up. It's tough to do it out of here because You're not getting a direct flight from here. You might be able to. I don't know if Toronto's got direct flights or not, but like no matter what, like from here, you're going through Boston or New York City to get there, and that's annoying and whatever. but like going there, like I at some point in like the next 5 years, my goal is to go to Ireland, go to England, go to Scotland, see all of it, do the grand tour, and then maybe end up living there. Who knows? Just maybe be like, you know what? I like it here. This is good. I think I'll stick around. Weather's dreary all the time. Yeah, perfect. I love it.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. Follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Yerdon. Go to his Substack again. It is notedhockey.substack.com. Again, Joe, 4 games with the Sabres this week. I'm sure you're going to have tons of content up on there. Hopefully, from a Sabres fan perspective anyway, it's going to be a lot of positive game reports and vibes. But regardless of how they do, you'll find all of Joe's work up there. Maintenance Day podcast. Usually, I want to say every Monday, but sometimes it might drop on a Tuesday. But typically, Joe and Lance get together and they do the show on Monday. It kind of depends on the schedule and the games and stuff like that, where they can get the best stuff out. But thanks as always, man. It's always great to have you on the show.
No, it's always a good time, and next time I'll be better prepared for sad songs of decades, so I can have so I don't get stunted.
All right, one more time, thank you again for listening or watching. Please make sure on the audio side that you follow, rate, and review on whatever your favorite podcasting platform is, and then on the video side, make sure to subscribe, hit that little bell for notifications on new videos, and smash that like button for this video. I know it's tedious to say, but I cannot emphasize enough how much doing that stuff helps support this show and get us higher on those algorithms that ultimately make or break shows just like this. Thanks again. Stay safe, and we'll see you again soon.